So maybe you'd like to just start by giving an overview of the Indian market, especially the evolution of the market in the
Yeah.
last couple of years for
Sure.
ATR.
Okay. So first of all, my name is John Moore, and I'm head of global sales for ATR. The Indian market has been a very good market for ATR over the years. It's a market that's quite well suited and well adapted for our product, and we first started developing the market probably more than 10 years ago, 15 years ago, actually, almost 20 years ago, with deliveries to Jet Airways, and then we had aircraft going into Air India as well. And then in the mid 2000s, we had quite a strong growth of the fleet with Air Deccan and Kingfisher and Jet Airways taking more aircraft as well. Today, the fleet in India, I think, numbers around 25 or 30 aircraft ATRs in total. But we see quite a significant potential for growth in the Indian market. As you know, the Indian aviation market has its ups and downs, and it's been a bit difficult for many of the airlines to remain profitable. And of course, a lot of those airlines are really competing head to head on the main trunk routes and fighting over low yields and market share. The ATR is really filling quite a different niche of the market. The ATR is an aircraft which is very well suited for the smaller, thinner markets, the regional markets, distances of up to sort of 300, 350 nautical miles, or 700 or 800 kilometers. It's an aircraft which works quite well in those markets because it has a very low operating cost, so low cost per seat, and it can also operate in airfields and runways which have fairly limited infrastructure and even short airfields. So the aircraft is quite good in terms of being able to create more regional connectivity between towns and cities that are underserved or less served by air transport. And in particular, it allows an airline to be able to offer a relatively low fare, low cost, low price, because the cost of the aircraft is fairly low as well. So we've seen quite a significant development of this type of market and this type of network in many other parts of the world. In fact, ATR has quite a large backlog in Asia Pacific region in other countries such as Indonesia and Malaysia, where again there's a lot of new growth in passengers. You have a dynamic which is quite strong in India, where you have an increase in the GDP, an increase in the purchasing power, so you have more and more people who can start to actually think about being able to afford to fly or to take an airplane instead of traveling by road or by train. And so it can be quite a good economic engine for not only for business, because you can make a day trip instead of having to travel for many, many hours and to do business in a neighboring town, and also for friends and relatives and families to be able to travel as well. So, as I said at the beginning, I think the market has a lot of untapped potential, and we see some good growth opportunities in the Indian regional market. And of course, part of this could be also fueled by the government's plan or program, to try to increase the regional connectivity. And part of it would be just driven by the business opportunity that the airlines could find in those kinds of markets.
Just an add-on, how has the disappearance of Kingfisher impacted you? I think they had some orders with you.
Yes, in fact, fortunately, it didn't really
At
impact
its peak,
us.
Kingfisher and Deccan combined.
Yeah.
How many aircraft? They
When
had a whole lot here and a whole lot for delivery.
that's right. When they merged together, I think the fleet was around 25 or 30 aircraft. So it was quite a sizable fleet. And then we, of course, had aircraft on order as well from them. But fortunately for ATR, I mean, obviously it was very unfortunate and very sad for us to see a large operator like that with a lot of growth and potential not be able to continue business. And in fact, the ATR part of their operation we understood was profitable. It was all of the other activities that were pulling the company down. But so it was very unfortunate. It happened to occur in a time when we had quite a strong demand for our aircraft. So we were able to replace and resell all the aircraft that were on order. So it didn't really hurt us, too much. And in fact, the secondhand market also for ATR has continued to remain relatively vibrant. So most of the Kingfisher aircraft have been replaced with other airlines by the leasing companies. So it didn't really disrupt the market too much, but I think it did set us back a little bit in the growth and the development of the Indian market, and so we probably lost a few years of progress, which now we're starting to see coming back. The most recent development has been with Air India and Alliance, which has put out an RFP and now taken some more.
I was in
new
Toulouse
ATRs.
about 10 days ago,
Mhm.
and we were passing by one of the runways, and I saw that Air India ATR 72-600 just standing there.
Yes.
Is it on order, or was it on lease, or is it yet to be delivered? Or what is
Yes, in fact, they had an RFP and they ordered a total initially of 5 aircraft from the leasing companies directly. So we have sold a number of aircraft to the leasing companies over the last couple of years. So the leasing companies now have aircraft that they have available that they can then propose to the airlines. So in the case of Air India, they were specifically looking to lease the aircraft rather than purchase the aircraft. So they did an RFP, they made a selection, and they chose a couple of different leasing companies. So the aircraft that you saw was an aircraft which was just starting the delivery process to be delivered to them. I think it'll be the third one. They have 2 already, and this will be the third of a total of 5. And I understand they have another RFP that's currently active looking for additional airplanes, and those will all be 72-600s.
even the current ones are 72-600?
That's correct, yeah.
I was quite taken aback actually. I saw that aircraft, I'm like, oh, okay.
Mhm.
It's a
Yeah, it's a
nice
familiar
pleasant
sight.
surprise.
Yeah.
And so Jetta has ATR 72-500s, and they have about 13 or 18 of them.
They have a total of 18 aircraft, 3 of which are 600s,
Yeah.
which they took recently in the last couple of years, and then the remaining 15 are 500s, yes.
And what about further orders from them? Are there further orders?
At this time, there's no further orders from Jet Airways, no.
Okay, if not to ATR, but through a leasing company. I mean,
Right now,
but we
I
hear
think,
there's a requirement for a large number by Jet Airways. So
let's hope so, but
Yeah.
so far, there's nothing that's currently underway. Yeah.
Do you see the competition in India increasing? Because Embraer got a nice deal
Mhm.
last year. So how do
Yeah.
you see that coming in? And now Mitsubishi also entering the game.
Yeah, certainly. I think in the last years, our main competitor, of course, is Bombardier with the Dash 8 400, and in the last
which
years,
SpiceJet is using.
ATR has had about 80% of the market, so we have quite a strong market share compared to Bombardier. Bombardier does have one customer in India with SpiceJet, and in terms of the jet competition, we don't compete too much directly with the jet because the economics of a jet are really quite different. The aircraft flies a lot faster, it burns a lot more fuel, it's much more expensive to operate. And so on the short segments, you're not really getting any benefit from that speed that compensates for the higher cost. When you get really to the longer distances, then it starts to make sense. But so far, we don't really compete directly with the regional jets. With the new generation jets like the Mitsubishi and the E2, there may be a little bit more of an overlap, but still the turboprop market is really a very distinct market, and a lot of the markets in India really are more what we consider to be turboprop markets than jet markets.
I think so. There's just too much concentration on the jet market when there should be equal concentration on the turboprop market also.
Yeah.
In recent times, I think Gazalan, correct me if I'm wrong, I think about 4 or 5 airlines have been given the go-ahead to start up.
Mm-hmm.
I am not sure whether I know 2 of them are looking at just jets, either Airbus or Boeing.
Yes.
But the other 3, I'm not aware. I'm not sure what they want. Are you in talks with any of these potential airlines for, say, turboprops?
Yeah, in fact, there are 2 or 3 airlines that have started recently in India with used ATRs. One of them is Air Pegasus, which has started now. They have, I think, 2 or 3 aircraft that they're working on, and I think there's another one, Turbojet.
Costa.
But
Costa
Costa
Air is the one that
Embraers.
ordered the Embraers. But there's another 1 or 2 that are also, at least they've advertised that they're planning to take ATRs. They're starting more with the second-hand aircraft just to keep the cost down.
But where would these be? I don't see any ads, or I don't see any. Is it for the south or the east?
It's in the
of the
south, yeah. I think Air Pegasus is. They're in the south. I'm not sure exactly
Yeah.
which their
Basically,
headquarters
Andhra
is.
and
Okay,
Karnataka.
it's
Yeah.
that side.
Yeah.
Okay.
On the defense side, because your aircraft, you also were looking at the Maritime Patrol
Mhm.
program.
Yes.
They're the same platforms. So how does the transition happen? How do you convert them based on the requirement of the customer?
Mhm.
So how does this transition work?
With the maritime surveillance and patrol aircraft, those aircraft are finished by Alenia, which is
Okay.
ATR is 50% Alenia, 50% Airbus. So we deliver the green aircraft or the platform to
Okay.
Alenia, and then Alenia has an MP version. So they do all the modification and the conversion where they install
Okay.
all of the surveillance and radar
Right.
equipment. They have some modifications to make a bubble window and even a door that can be opened in flight to launch life rafts for search and rescue.
Okay.
So that's an Alenia product that uses the ATR
So for
platform.
all maritime patrol or defense questions, we should go to Finmechanica and ask them?
Yes, that's correct. I mean, they are the company
They
that has
look
the
after
marketing and sales responsibility for the maritime patrol, and then they use the ATR platform for that.
Right.
What's the potential of the Indian market for ATR? I mean, for the turboprops,
Mhm.
and you said you're at 80% of the market.
Yes.
But in the long term, what's a sustainable level for you?
Well, that's a good question. I think 80% is probably difficult to maintain, although it's been that way now for quite a few years. But you know, if you look at the total history of the competition between ATR and Bombardier, typically we've been around 2/3, 65% to 1/3. But we've really grown a lot in the last few years because our presence particularly in the emerging markets and where there's a lot of growth, has been quite strong. So I'd say in that balance, in that range, our production, we're continuing to increase the production to try to meet the demand. So this year we should deliver just more than 90 aircraft. Last year we delivered 83 aircraft, so we're continuing, probably level off at around 100 per year. Today we have a backlog of about 250 aircraft, so it's around nearly 3 years of production. As far as the Indian market, we don't have a specific forecast for the Indian market per se, but if you look at the size of the market and the potential of the fleet, you know, I would say that there's room for somewhere between another 50 and 100 aircraft over the next few years. You know, it's really, there's a lot of potential. Part of it will depend on whether the government policy is pushing airlines to go in that direction, or whether it's just airlines that are seeing opportunities in developing that business. But I think there's a very good potential in that market.
The new government is also putting focus on manufacturing parts or large parts in India.
Yeah.
Is that something that you're looking at?
It's something that we could look at, although it's difficult because the ATR is a very mature program, so we don't have really new sourcing opportunities. So you know, it would probably be on a relatively minor scale. And then, of course, our two main suppliers are Alenia and Airbus, which are also our two shareholders. And so they are responsible for manufacturing the fuselage for Alenia and the wing by Airbus. So they are actually the ones that would be more the ones that would be looking for partners. And of course, Airbus has quite a large industrial footprint in India already. Alenia not so much, but so there's probably limited opportunity for that.
India apart, where do you see the growth potential for a turboprop worldwide? What are the growth markets?
Well, if you look at the recent history, our backlog is around 1/2 in Asia Pacific region, and then the other good solid markets for ATR are Latin America, particularly Brazil has been quite a big growth market. There's a good steady demand in Europe, even though it's a mature market. It's not growth; it's more replacement and renewal.
The Middle East.
Middle East has been a fairly small market for us.
Which one?
Europe.
Europe. Okay.
Yes, it's a mature market, but it's
Right.
got some good renewal opportunity. And then Africa, Middle East is, you know, it has some potential as well. And probably the two markets where we have historically been, or for the last decade, we've been inactive has been North America and China, and those are two markets where we hope to be more active.
Why not China? Why have you not been able to make inroads into China? I mean, sanctions don't affect you.
No, there's no sanctions, but there's two main reasons. The first is that the regional market in China is still relatively undeveloped. There's very few regional aircraft. There's no turboprops, foreign turboprops, and very few regional aircraft in China. So that's a market that still has yet to really develop kind of a hub and spoke system with regional aircraft. And then the other reason is that we do have there is a Chinese manufacturer that's making a turboprop, the MA60.
Okay.
So there are some import duties which make it a little bit more expensive for an airline to buy a foreign turboprop, but we still believe that there will be opportunities in China.
And see, these requirements or the opening of the economy in these areas, obviously great requirements, but at certain level there is stagnation plus growing competition. How do you beat this? Because as you said, yours is a mature program. So each airline would need a finite number, and beyond that, obviously it will take a long time till they replace their old aircraft. So how do you meet this gap?
Well, I'd say there's two factors that are driving that. One is that in the markets where ATR, first of all, ATR is pretty much everywhere. We have 190 operators in 90 countries, so we're quite well distributed worldwide. So there's a large base of opportunities there, and as long as you have some economic growth and some GDP growth, which is driving passenger growth, and in particular in many areas where we're active, you have a strong growth of development of regional routes, of new markets and new routes which are developing. So that's driving it, and then we're continuing to improve our product as well, the 600 being the latest version, so we've made a lot of improvements there. So there's a good market for not only for growth but also for renewal, for airlines that eventually want to renew their fleet. I think in the last few years the majority of our sales have been for growth, but there's good potential for renewal of the older ATRs as well. And then there's quite an active market for the second-hand aircraft going into less opportunities where they can't afford new aircraft, but used aircraft can make sense. So our forecast for the next 20 years is around 2,500 turboprops in our size category.
Sorry, how much?
2,500 over 20 years.
In 20 years.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's that's a good size. On average, it's 125 aircraft per year. So there's always ups and downs, but we see a relatively stable demand in the next foreseeable future.
Beyond selling, what is the other kind of relationship you have with your users, with your operators? Do you directly lease to them? Do you give them wet leases, or it's just plain sale either to the operator or to the leasing agency?
Yes, for us, obviously, we have any customer. It's really a long-term relationship, a long-term partnership. So we have the support and the services. We also have a maintenance program, a Power by the Hour program, which is quite well developed, which we can offer to our customers. So there's a pay by the hour maintenance service that we can offer also.
Pay by the hour, how does that work?
Basically, they subcontract some of the maintenance of the aircraft to ATR.
Okay.
So we can cover all of the rotables and the equipment. We can cover the landing gear. We can cover the propellers, and then it's a single source. So they deal just with ATR, and then we deal with all of the other suppliers.
Okay.
So we have that service, and then we don't directly do any leasing of aircraft.
Okay.
But we have a number of leasing companies which have purchased ATRs, which can provide the leasing if that's what the airline wants.
Okay.
Or if the airline wants to purchase the aircraft, we have specialists in our sales finance team that can help locate financing for the airline.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot.
Thanks,
Nice to
Joe.
see
Yeah.
you.